Since I did used to run product marketing for a structured content vendor.
Sure. Yeah. What renders in a browser isn't necessarily structured. You know what I mean?
Hello and welcome to the Rose and Rockstar from the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast and the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a CMO. If you're new to the podcast, in a moment I will join my chum, author, marketing, strategy expert and chief troublemaker at the Seventh Bear, Robert Rose, in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, where he recommends one of his fabulous cocktails and I pick his brains on a marketing topic that is top of mind for me. This week is a big topic as influenced by some posts on LinkedIn and the changes in how our audience consume content. I was inspired to ask, is the corporate website dead? But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back. After this word.
We'll be right back.
After this word.
Raise the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I had a complete and utter technology meltdown yesterday.
No.
Which sadly today, it's 2025.
Yes.
And you would think that things like modems and connectivity to your home to get to the internet, you would think that would be a problem that's solved by now. It's not. It's not a problem that is solved. It still takes a technician, a cable company here, which is how we get our internet here at my house, and they send a technician out, and it still takes them 2 hours to replace a cable modem and get you back up online. And it's what amazes me is our cable modem is, I don't know, the size of a large paperback book, right?
Yep.
And how much of your entire life is wrapped up in a box the size of an oversized paperback book. It is absolutely. It was my entire day yesterday just replacing that stupid little box. And so, yes. But otherwise today, I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm looking forward to the cocktails. That's for sure.
Yes. Well,
but otherwise, it's been a lovely week.
Well, you're coming through loud and clear. So it's good that we managed to grab you on a Friday and not a Thursday. Then, so it wouldn't have happened yesterday. No,
it would have been no good at all.
Oh, cool! And also, luckily for your own podcast, right? So when I presume you must have recorded that earlier in the week because that came out today. So
well, indeed, it happened. It went down. As Dr. Evil might say, the details of my life are quite inconsequential. So I'm not sure how much more detail we need to go into, but ostensibly it went down exactly after Joe and I finished recording our podcast. Wow. So I mean, it was like minutes after it went down. So
oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that we stay up today. So, or at least it goes down immediately. I mean, if it goes down for me immediately afterwards, that's great, because then I log off and it's pizza and movie night. And then we might need to put a DVD into the machine instead of streaming. Anyway, let's
Anyway, we have a wonderful cocktail this evening.
Splendid.
And it's in celebration of what I was supposed to be celebrating yesterday, which of course is the equinox.
Oh yes.
And or as I say it to annoy my wife, the equinox. My wife gets so mad when I say equinox. She doesn't even correct me anymore. But anyway, it's called the Equinox cocktail, and it is a passion fruit cocktail. Yeah. It starts with a little bit of find whether you like passion fruit syrup or a little passion fruit juice or whatever you can find that's flavored like a passion. You can literally empty a passion fruit into your cup, and then it has scotch, and that's the key here. It's a blended scotch. Any blended scotch will do. Probably want something that's not too strong on the peaty side or the mossy side or anything like that. But a blended scotch, and then a little cachaça. You know what that is?
No.
And then a little bit of bitters. And so it's a little bit more of a complex cocktail. And then you mix all that together, and you can stir it up in a glass with ice, or you can put it into a mixer if that's your preference, and then strain it into like a chilled martini glass or a coupe glass if you like. And there you go. We have our equinox cocktail.
I'm not familiar with cachaça. Is that what you said?
It's called cachaça.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah. Well, cachaça is, let's see, how to describe cachaça. It is kind of it's a Brazilian liqueur, if you will. And basically, if you can find it, it's a little more difficult to find. But basically, it's kind of a liqueur made from it's a sugar cane. It's basically sugar, right? And so it's very sugary, very sweet, and it's made a lot in South America or Brazil specifically for tropical types of drinks. And it doesn't have a very strong taste, but it is very much something used as it is a kind of a liqueur,
right?
And you're familiar with Madeira?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. It's very much like a Madeira.
Oh, nice. Okay. Sorry. A bit of a diversion there, but that's
almost like a rum. Almost like a rum.
Ooh,
but it's very doesn't have a high taste flavor.
Oh, I'll have to look out for that. Although, I mean, not having a high taste flavor does rather doesn't really sell it. But I suppose if you're sticking,
you've got enough going on there with the passion fruit and the scotch. You don't need a lot. It's basically just to sweeten things up a little bit.
Why have you called that the equinox? You just fancied one yesterday, or?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it is called the equinox. I didn't make that up. This is a cocktail that exists out in the world.
Wow, cool. All right. Yeah. So while we're in the bar here, I have I'd like to pick your brain for a quick question for you. Well, it might not be quick, actually. I've been recently on various channels, particularly LinkedIn. I've been seeing a question about our corporate websites, whether they are.
Oh, indeed.
Whether they're dead, basically, and I'm loath.
We're doing this again, are we? Okay.
I'm loath to actually use that expression because obviously describing things as dead is so dead. But I think we both saw the same post because I think it was a mutual connection of ours that liked it. Somebody posted on Substack, a lady called Carrie Lycan that I don't know. And she went through, she was bemoaning the fact that, bemoaning sounds like the wrong word, but she really was making the case that maybe in healthcare, it's very difficult now to run a knowledge-based healthcare website where you might get information from due to a number of factors. And she goes into detail about it, and I'll include a link to it in the show notes. But basically, she's talking about the changes to Google with the increasing number of AI overviews. And also, if you look beyond just this one post, which inspired this question for you, is people are talking about the fact that organic and SEO seem to have lost their effectiveness. There's changes to the way that people consume content, that maybe your corporate, you should put your effort into tick-face rather than your website. What's your view on this? Are our websites, and I'm loath to say it, dead?
Well, you can rest assured that pronouncing anything dead means that it's going to live on forever. Right?
email.
So
yeah,
it's not. I mean, and healthcare is there's a lot in healthcare, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking specifically around health providers, I think Cleveland Clinic and Health Essentials and their health library would like a word, because they have managed to make
exactly.
Their not only their corporate website, but their blog and their health library, the resource center, so good that it makes money. It's a revenue generator for them. So I don't know that I would say that it's dead. Is it harder to differentiate, in verticals such as healthcare and financial services and other areas where there is a lot of competition sort of at parity with each other, right? Because there's only so many ways you can say 5% interest rates, right? There's only so many ways you can say eating a healthy diet is good, right?
Yes.
So it's really hard to differentiate in those markets where there is objectively a good answer. And so from that perspective, and if we're talking about the corporate website, really what we're talking about is information around the company, which in large degree is solved, by search with knowledge graph, increasingly by AI, and literally the question becomes: do you just need I think there's an interesting question here, which is: do you need something that has design and a visualness to it, or do you just need a very highly structured content repository so that you're feeding all of the other visualizations of content with the correct and right information, right? Such as knowledge graph on Google, or AI engines, or Bing, or YouTube, or whatever it is. You have a very structured. To me, I think what has happened is that the purpose of the corporate website, or the purpose of the sort of what we used to call our, literally the online billboard on the information superhighway, right? And that purpose may be changing. If you look at many corporate websites today, they still operate from the 1990s and early 2000s model of, there's a home page, and then there's an About Us page, and then there's a press page, and then there's a product page, and then there's services page. And, there's sort of the classic website design. And that might be truly evolving into something really different, because the purpose of the corporate website now is really to provide a level of it's a communication vehicle for sure, because that's why most people are coming to it, whether you're a customer and you're trying to do something functional, like make an appointment with somebody, or you're trying to understand when some event is going to happen, or, it's literally a resource for the latest information from that particular company, or you're trying to use it as a marketing vehicle of some kind to build an audience. So I think the purpose is fundamentally changes, and in theory kills the concept of the classic corporate website, but not, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have an owned media property against a strategic marketing purpose. That's just nonsense.
Yeah, it sounds to me like, well, for a start, HTML is a very structured way to present your content, right? So therefore,
well, kinda. I mean, HTML is like
all right.
Well, it's structured like the American version of English is structured. You know what I mean? It's like,
which is a language.
It is English, but is it really?
But then English isn't particularly well structured either. So you're starting off on
exactly.
on shaky foundations.
The point, it's like it's not German, right?
Yeah. So I think that I've annoyed any information architect out there by describing HTML as structured probably, and I should know better, seeing as I used to run product marketing for a structured content vendor.
Sure. Yeah. What renders in a browser isn't necessarily structured. You know what I mean? Just because it renders well in a browser does not mean that it's structured well.
But if we could go down the rabbit hole of what is structured content, what isn't. I think the purpose here is to inform the thing that our audience is reading, right? So if it is the Google AI overview, then it seems to be that Google is doing a pretty good job of reading HTML, right? So that suggests that sticking something in the world, you still need to do that. And if you choose the structure to be HTML, then Google will figure it out. No,
I think that's it. Well, I mean, you have to. So there is an argument. There's a business case to make around a website that has nothing to do with search, right?
Yep.
So in other words, in order to have my content rank in Google currently,
yes,
the way that you want to do that is you want to have HTML structured pages that people can surf, right?
Yeah.
Because it's looking for that, right? In other words, if I could just give it a database and say, hey, Google search, there you go.
Yeah.
Right? Here's a database of organized, highly structured content that's up to the minute, long form, et cetera. There's no way to humanly visualize this. It's just a data repository that I want you to scan and provide that information upon people searching. And I want to do that in an optimized way. You could, but you wouldn't, right? And the reason, because it's the click through to that is still a very visual experience for most people. They're going to click through, and they're going to click through to something that they hopefully can see rendered in a browser, despite how structured or unstructured it is.
Yeah.
Increasingly, however, as there's an argument to be made that as AI starts to approximate that, you could see a future, in other words, where a website is built on the fly for you by the browser without any regard to your website, right? There's no reason per se that Google couldn't assemble a website from a structured repository of content and just present it to you in that way. That's a very nice way for a human to read something. And it becomes a standard way for you to do that. And that would work.
Yeah. Right? I mean,
now,
you can already see that, right? Because I think with the AI overviews, if that takes over any more of the search page, it's basically building an experience for you based around your query, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And imagine a middle tier, right? Imagine a middle tier, which is here's the query to your, here's the answer, like with citations, right?
Yeah.
And imagine a world where you click on the citation and it dynamically, very quickly builds you the site that you need for that particular answer, right? Which might include the about us, information, and it might include the citation, the article itself. It might include a way to contact that company, and it might include, whatever the things are that need to be included contextually around that particular snippet of content to give the user a good experience that they can take whatever journey they're going on. And you can see that even being offered as a service, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no reason that the click-through visualization of content has to come from the brand itself. Certainly no technical reason. Now, the reason that it does currently is because of the way the organic web grew, and of course because of the way that brands want to control their own sort of destiny and be outside the wall. They want to create the art project that is the creative way that they want their content to be displayed. I want it with this image, and I want it with this headline font, and I want it with this, the way that it can click through to my, LinkedIn page and all that stuff, right? But you could see a future where that becomes unnecessary. And so with that, it's not that the information becomes dead. It's that the purpose and visualization of that information evolves to something very, very different than what it looks like today. But we're so far off from that.
Yeah.
It's like pronouncing something dead because that's a possible future is like, it's not terribly helpful for those that are trying to figure out what to do next week.
Well, I also think that, because you made the point there that all corporate websites are pretty much generic in terms of the way they're templated. And
it's become that way, right? It's because, I mean, if you think about it, like every corporate website pretty much follows the same pattern now.
Yeah. But what I mean, in the past, what I've tried to think about is, like the standard labels at the top are like product, solutions, blog, services, about us, right? And that's your standard B2B website at the top. And I've tried to deviate from that sometimes and say, how we can help and all those kinds of labels. But people are now, I think we're so trained on what the web experience on a B2B corporate website looks like that when you start messing with that kind of trope, then it confuses the you. And I think I think there's something interesting in this, in that our corporate websites have to look like this because this is the way we've trained everybody.
Well, it's such a great point, because if you think about it, remember, you're old enough, along with me, to remember the early 2000s, when reasonable, big, conservative corporate brands made super cool websites, right?
Yeah.
They were these interactive experiences where you zoomed through virtual hallways and you opened up doors and you went into rooms, and you remember there was the whole house metaphor design concept for a while, where you'd go in the front door and then you'd go into the bedroom where it was like the information and all this kind of stuff, right? They were all art projects back then. And you had movie websites that were weird games and Flash things, and you had all kinds of weird, cool art project-y like websites that you sort of had to figure out like a puzzle. And this is before the days of search engine optimization and structured content and all that stuff, right? They were literally art projects. Nobody gave a shit about whether Google could spider it or not. It was all about presenting content in a really cool way to differentiate yourself on the web. And then somebody went, oh, well, you need to structure it in a much more like, hub and spoke sort of design, so that Google, we started designing and writing for search engines. And so that turned everything into, to the basic standardized blog format that you see today, right? That every blog looks exactly the same in so many ways, and every website, every corporate website looks pretty much the same. And you have that homogeneity that's out there. And and everybody goes, well, of course you do, because we're trying to rank for search. That's the whole point. You can see a future where that actually, you go, okay, I'm going to buy into the whole Google can make my dynamic website for me, but I'm going to create this cool little art project here over on the side to do this brand campaign that I want people to look at, right?
That's I also think that we're optimizing for the humans with that, but that format, as you say, was for us optimizing for the machines. So the machines have driven our design.
100%.
It's really
100%. I have there's a slide in my workshop where I talk about differentiation and content and design. How we're designing content experiences these days, and it's and that the title of that slide is that we've teched the story out of the web, right? We've teched it out, right? Where the canvas is now driven by the aspect ratio, and the screen formats, and the limitations on web rendered fonts, and basically Google has sent us a style sheet and said comply with this, basically.
Absolutely. And it is interesting because sometimes you'll go on an agency website where they don't really, they're just trying to look as cool as fuck, right? And they don't really care about Google indexing their stuff, and they're impossible to actually work until you figure out their paradigm, because it's different to what you're used to. So I think this is a really interesting topic about training the user as well as training Google.
Yeah. I mean, here's the other thing, because I saw a corollary post to this go up on LinkedIn as well, which talked about that corporate websites were and are dying or whatever. Yeah. Basically the thesis of the post was, when are we going to stop talking about corporate websites and putting our entire presence on YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah. Right? I think I saw the same thing, which also inspired this question. So I'd seen these two posts happen close, and which is ridiculous at its face, by the way, because that's the definition of rented land. And as hopefully we learned our lesson there when people started saying that Facebook could be the new website. Right. Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. Well, we've run up to time, and but what a lovely journey we went on there, including Flash in the late 90s. I think that's fantastic.
Miss Flash.
Well, what killed Flash? SEO killed
Shockwave.
Flash, right?
Yeah, I miss Shockwave and I miss Flash.
Yeah, but then you can do some cool stuff with JavaScript now. But anyway, where if we were to reminisce about Flash, but we were looking for something that maybe didn't confuse us when we were navigating through it, where might we find something like that?
You would find it on the Shockwave and Flash free site of seventhbear.com.
God, that was a stretch. I'm sorry about that, mate. And when we spin the dial on the interwebs, when we spin the dial on the interwebs, where we're going to find you, my friend?
I'd love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. Is my favorite place these days.
All right. And will you be in the bar next week?
Of course.
All right, man. I'll see you then. Thank you, Robert. And that article that inspired the conversation was called "Maybe We Should Write an Obituary" for the website by Carrie Lycan, and it was on Substack. So that's a wrap on our visit to the Rose and Rockstar. Thank you for joining us and listening. If you'd like us to discuss a marketing topic that is top of mind for you, please get in touch. You can find links to me and Robert in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com, plus our blog, newsletter, and a little bit about my little agency, Rockstar CMO. Or connect or follow us on LinkedIn. Just search for Rockstar CMO. Please mention you're a listener if you'd like to connect. Coming up this week on Rockstar CMO FM, Jess is back in the marketing studio as we start a new series discussing a CMO's first 90 days. In the meantime, remember, as Dewey Finn said in the film The School of Rock, you can't just say it, man. You got to feel it in your blood and guts if you want to rock.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.